as Donald celebrated, if that's what you want to call it, his 100th day in office. And this is a fun coincidence for us. The Q1 economic numbers came in showing essentially that he has fucked our economy so badly that even Fox couldn't sugarcoat it. And not even Fox, but Maria Bartiromo, who can sugarcoat basically anything, couldn't sugarcoat the horrific news coming out about this country's economy, or should we call it the Donald Trump economy? Here she is with the breakdown on Mornings with Maria.
Welcome back. We have breaking news right now. We're getting the GDP in for the first quarter, and it is a contraction, negative 0.3%. This is the first contraction since the first quarter of 2022. Markets this morning have reversed. The Dow Industrials right now down 115 points on this contraction of the GDP. First quarter GDP, first read. We've got more coming up in terms of advances, but the first read on the first quarter GDP is in fact a contraction, down 0.3% versus an estimate of up 0.3%. First contraction since first quarter 2022. Markets reversing, down at the lows of the day, down 139 right now on the Dow Industrials.
My God, has nothing legitimately bad ever happened to this woman? She seems very, very upset. I hope there are some tissues there. I actually think it might just be because she's worried that by telling the truth, she's not going to get paid. But she told the truth. Like, how many times can you say contraction in one paragraph? That was fun for me. Anyway, so what happens though when petulant children get called out for doing something wrong? Do they own up to their actions? Like, I don't know, mature petulant children? No, they do not. They act like Donald Trump and they blame someone else. So this morning, Donald, the petulant child of whom I speak, flipped out on his failing social media site, writing the following, quote, "This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's." Well, it's definitely not mine. "I didn't take over until January 20th. Tariffs will soon start kicking in and companies are starting to move into the USA in record numbers. Our country will boom, but we have to get rid of the Biden overhang. This will take a while, has nothing to do with tariffs," unquote. Does he mean hangover? I don't overhang. Is that like the dangerous rock fall you have to worry about on a highway? I'm not really sure what he's getting at here, except I do know this. That is not how it works. If he had done nothing, the Biden economy, which again was the envy of the world. It was the strongest economy among developed countries on the planet when Donald came into office. If Donald had done nothing, we would be fine. I mean, we'd still be fascist, but economically speaking, we'd be fine. However, Donald won the presidency in large part, by convincing a vast segment of the population, many of whom are quite vulnerable in many ways, that the Biden economy was actually bad. And because inflation was higher than it should be, or that people were comfortable with, they were struggling and they were worried that inflation would continue to go up under a Harris administration and that the cost of living would continue to rise. He promised them on day one that he would help, that he would turn things around, that he would make this economy great again, even though, of course, he never gave anybody any details because nobody ever asked him anything. So it's becoming clear, even to his supporters, that Donald actually has no clue what he was doing. What he is doing. He had no clue what he was promising. Consumer confidence is at a 5-year low. Well, that's an accomplishment. As individuals spent less this quarter, there was also a surge of imports because businesses have started to stockpile goods in order to get ahead of the anticipated pricing increases. Why? Because of Donald's tariffs. This is according to Reuters. Quote, "Both consumer and business spending likely reflected front loading before the import duties kicked in. As such, the report reinforced Americans' growing disapproval of Donald's handling of the economy as he marks 100 days in office," unquote. So basically what this means is that the economic turmoil we are currently experiencing is directly linked to the moronic policies instituted by Donald Trump and nobody else. So This is how bad Donald's economy is in the short term. But experts say his decisions around cuts, tariffs, and our relationships with our trading allies, which used to be quite good, could have long term effects. But before we go further, Mary Trump Media is not corporate backed. We are not for sale. We are here to expose every single lie the Trump regime tells and tries to cover up, even as corporate media continues to bend the knee. Independent media only survives because of support from people like you. So if you want to help us keep this going and growing and help us keep fighting, please like this video, share it, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Now that things are going very poorly, Donald's beginning to say, wait, just wait. Things are going to pick up. You know, there are going to be some disruptions. But he's messing up the economy in ways he's too ignorant to understand. None of this, no matter what he does, is going to turn around overnight. And there's more that might seem unrelated, but is not. This week, the science community just suffered another serious blow under the Trump regime. News 3 Now has the report here.
The next authoritative look at how climate change is affecting the U.S. is fired. The Trump administration dismissed all scientists and authors and can now skip the congressionally mandated report altogether. The last assessment came out in 2023. It found climate change is already transforming every region of the U.S. with more frequent, intense weather events and other costly and harmful effects. Congress has mandated the reports come out every 4 years. The next was supposed to be due by 2027.
Nearly 400 climate scientists were working on this assessment, including some federal employees. CBS News reports that, quote, many in the scientific community are concerned about how the report will be written without the expertise of hundreds of scientists and researchers, unquote. So not only does this signal something that we already know, which is that Donald and the Trump regime are actively working to make the climate crisis worse, in large part by denying it is even happening. I could honestly just go on and on about this all day, and I will in other videos because it is one of the most crucially important issues of our time. Experts say that Donald's slashing scientific research will have devastating long-term effects on our economy. Well, how, you might ask? See, the Trump regime has either cut or frozen billions of dollars, and I mean significant tens, hundreds of billions of dollars in funding that normally goes to agencies like the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and to research universities like Johns Hopkins. Taking that money away from researchers undercuts America's status as a leader in data and research. And this will hinder our ability to develop things like vaccines and medicines, AI, quantum computing, as well as to stay competitive in the arena globally. All of this is on top of Donald's forcing people to lose their jobs. Today, a study from American University's Institute for Macroeconomic and Policy Analysis dug into economic impacts on the research and data cuts under the Trump regime could have. The numbers are stark. There's no other way to put it. There is a 25% cut to public research and development spending, which would reduce the GDP by an amount comparable to the decline in GDP during the Great Recession. Cutting annual public research and development spending in half would make the average American approximately $10,000 poorer. Cutting public research and development would shrink federal government revenue. A 25% cut in research and development would decrease revenue by approximately 4.3% annually, while a 50% cut would decrease it by 8.6% annually. What direction do you think the Trump regime is going in? They have proven themselves to be absolutely anti-science. We know that by putting quacks, well, I can't call him a quack because Robert Kennedy has no degree of any kind in any kind of science. Facts. How about that? Like Robert Kennedy in charge of an agency as important and vast as Health and Human Services. The Trump regime has proven time and time again that they will put propaganda and disinformation ahead of keeping Americans healthy and safe. They have no interest whatsoever in protecting America's standing in the world as a beacon of research and innovation. And it is forcing scientists of all kinds to flee the country in search of work in other countries that value their work. So, on top of everything else, we have a significant brain drain occurring in this country. People are leaving. Nobody's coming in to replace them because they're afraid they're going to get deported. So, it will take potentially generations to make up the ground that we have lost in just 100 days. As Donald continues to spiral out, his enemies aren't backing down. China's foreign minister posted a video across social media sternly saying that China will not back down from Donald. And why should they? Because China, if you have noticed, has a lot of wealth and power in this scenario. And they're just better at this stuff than Donald is. And they're also calling on other countries to stand up to America. And quite frankly, Donald is making their case for them. The foreign minister's remarks included quotes like this, quote, "Bowing to a bully is like drinking poison to quench thirst. It only deepens the crisis. History has proven compromise won't earn you mercy. Kneeling only invites more bullying. China won't kneel down," unquote. Wow. Wouldn't it have been amazing if the Republicans had said that kind of stuff to Donald Trump back in 2015? Yeah. So all of this ended by saying that China and the world must fight on. And so must we, because the alternative is to allow Donald to continue to wreak havoc upon the American economy and the global economy. China is basically telling the international community to pick it in the fight against America. And again, Donald is the one who is making that choice a fairly easy one at this point. Donald keeps telling the people in our country to trust him on trade wars, to be patient, but he himself is completely unhinged. He's repeatedly said that he and Chinese officials are in constant contact to negotiate on trade, and China continually insists that there are no such negotiations going on. Who do you believe? I don't believe Donald because he never tells the truth. Last week, Donald told Time magazine that President Xi Jinping had called him, but on Monday, a Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson rejected this claim, adding, quote, "I want to reiterate that China and the United States are not engaged in consultations or negotiations on the tariff issue," unquote. Well, that's alarming for two reasons. Either because Donald's delusional and is imagining having conversations with people he's not actually speaking to, or his minions are getting on the phone pretending to be foreign heads of state. Either way, it's very bad. Donald is lying to our faces and, quite frankly, probably to himself, because toddlers can never admit they're wrong. They dig in, they double down, they quadruple down. Why? Well, course correcting, being wrong, means, in his worldview, that you're weak. However, we know better. We know that being in a position of power and making decisions that can impact the lives of hundreds of millions and potentially billions of people, and refusing to course correct when your chosen policies have been proven to be bankrupt, that is a sign of weakness. And that is a sign of being so unself-aware and so self-centered that you never should have been allowed anywhere near the levers of power. So Donald is taking a multi-pronged approach to ruining our economy. Great. What are we going to do about it? Well, unfortunately, there's really nothing we can do in the short term. However, because things are so bad and because the reason they're bad is so obvious, thank you, Donald, for that, Americans are truly starting to catch on to Donald's bullshit. And this, my friends, actually does give me some hope.